Let's see how to integrate Firebase into a Flutter project. So I'm assuming that you already have Flutter installed, the Flutter SDK and everything that's needed for it. And I also assume that you have Visual Studio Code installed and the Flutter extension for Flutter in Visual Studio Code. So let's start by opening Visual Studio Code and let's create a new Flutter project. So I'll open the command palette and here I'm going to look for Flutter and I'll choose New Project. Here I'm going to choose Empty Application because I want it to be as minimal as possible. And we need to choose the containing folder in which our project will be created. I'll choose this folder. And we now need to give a name to our project. I'll call it Working with Firebase. And the project is being created. Great, so this is done. Let's now choose the target as the Android emulator. So this should be this one. And let me place it here. Great, so this is done. Let's now move on to creating a new Firebase project. For this, I'm going to open my web browser and let's navigate to the Firebase console. This can be found at console.firebase.google.com. And this is the Firebase main dashboard. And here I'm going to create a new Firebase project. So let's click here. And we need to give a name to our new Firebase project. I'll call it Firebase Flutter. And let's create the Firebase project. Great, it was created. Let's continue. And now we need to choose the type of application we're going to work with. And they have a relatively new option, which is specifically for Flutter. So this is what I'm going to choose, Flutter. And here are the steps to integrate Firebase into our Flutter application. So first we need to make sure that we have the Firebase CLI. Conveniently enough, there is a link here, so let's click on it for the Firebase CLI. And I am on Windows, so I'll choose Windows. Now, as you can see, they have two options here, standalone binary and NPM. For me, I don't know why, but for me, the standalone binary didn't really work, so I strongly recommend for you to use the NPM option. Now, if you don't know what NPM is, it's basically the Node Package Manager. Node is a server-side library. It's basically JavaScript, but it's used for server-side scripting. So if you don't have Node installed on your computer, and by the way, if you're not sure if you have it, you can open your terminal and run node --version, and it will show you which version of Node you have installed. If you get back some number, it means that you have Node installed. Otherwise, you probably don't have Node. So if you don't have Node, what you can do is go here to nodejs.org, and when you navigate to this website, you can download Node.js. So you just click here, it will download the Node installer, and then you just go ahead and install Node. The Node installation is pretty straightforward, nothing really out of the ordinary there, so just next your way through. Anyway, I have Node, so I'm not going to install it again. So now here I'm going to make sure that I chose NPM, and by the way, NPM is Node Package Manager, so you need Node in order to use NPM. And now that I made sure that I have Node installed, I can run this command. So let's copy it, npm install -g Firebase tools, and this will install Firebase tools as an NPM package, or basically a Node package. So let's copy this command, and once again I'm going to run it in my terminal. So let's open the terminal and let's paste this command and run it. And the Firebase tools package was installed. So this is great. Let's get back to the instructions. So we don't need this page anymore. Let's close it. And now we have the Firebase CLI. Then we need to run Firebase login. This will allow us to log into our Firebase account from the Firebase package. So here in the terminal, I'm going to run Firebase login. And we can enable Gemini in Firebase. I don't want it, so no. And we can also send back usage information to Google. I'm not going to do that, so no. And a new tab was opened in the web browser, and I need to choose which Google account I want to use. And of course, this has to be the same Google account you use for your Firebase project. So let me choose this account. And we need to approve Firebase access to our Gmail account. And of course, it's going to be able to view and administer all of our Firebase data and settings. So this is fine. Great, so Firebase CLI login successful. We can now close this tab and now we have the Firebase CLI installed and we already logged in. So this is done, and of course I already have the Flutter SDK, otherwise I wouldn't be able to create my Flutter project. So I already did that, and we already created the Flutter project, so this is also done. Let's next. Next, we need Flutter Fire CLI. So first we need to install it, and this is going to be installed as a global Dart package. So this is the command. And to make things simpler, let me close my terminal, and I'll do that in Visual Studio Code. So let's open the terminal and let's install the Flutter Fire CLI. So I'll paste here the command. And if we look closely, we get here a warning. It says that it was installed into a path that is not part of our system path. So we need to add this folder to our system path. So let me copy this path. This is where the Flutter Fire package was installed to. So let's copy it, and I'm going to add it to my system's path. So to do that, let's look for environment, and here we can choose the option to edit the system environment variables. Here I'm going to choose environment variables, and if we take a look here at the system variables, we can see path. So let's edit our path, and here I'm going to add a new path to my system's path. So let's click on new, and let me paste the path to which the Flutter Fire package was installed. So let's paste it, and this is done. So now it's part of the system's path. Next up is running this command. This will configure our project to work with this specific project. If you remember, this is how I called my Firebase project. I called it Firebase Flutter, and we want to configure our Flutter project to work with this specific Firebase project. So let's copy this command and let's get back to Visual Studio Code. And now I have to make sure that the folder that's open in the integrated terminal is the root of my Flutter project. In my case, it is, okay? Because what we see here working with Firebase is the folder containing my Flutter project, and this is the folder that's open here. So make sure that this is the case for you, then paste this command and run it. And this is okay, and we can see that it says that it doesn't recognize Flutter Fire, even though we added it to the system's path. The solution is very simple. We're going to close Visual Studio Code and open it again. And once again, I'm making sure that the correct folder is open, the root of my Flutter project, and let me paste this command again and run it. And this is going to link, to connect our Firebase project to our Flutter project. And now we need to choose which platforms we want our Flutter project to work with. So personally, I don't care about iOS or Mac. So to uncheck these options, I'm going to hit the spacebar. So I'm going to uncheck iOS, go down to macOS, spacebar again, to unselect this option. And let's say that I want Android and web. So let's unselect Windows as well, spacebar. And now that I chose the selections I want, I'm going to hit enter. And our project is now being configured to work with a Firebase project. Very well. And here we can see that a new file called firebaseoptions.dart was created. All of the configurations needed can be found in this file. So this is done. Let's click on next. We're now almost ready to actually start working with Firebase in our Flutter project. One last thing that's not written here but should be done is installing the Firebase Dart package. So to do that, let me Google the package I need. And the package I want, the package I need is Flutter Core. So Dart package, Flutter Core. And here from this website, Dart packages, we can see the package I was looking for, Firebase Core. And this is the latest version. So let me copy the exact name of this package along with its version. And now we need to open our pubspec.yaml file. And here we can see the dependencies of our project. So of course we have Flutter, and we're also going to add the Firebase Core package. So let me paste what I just copied. This is great. Let's save this file, and it will update the project accordingly. And now the Firebase Core package was brought over to our Flutter project. Now from the lib folder, we can open main.dart. And if we go back to the Firebase documentation, we can see that we need to import these two lines. So let's bring them over. And now we should be able to run this command. So let's copy it. And this is going to initialize our app to work with a Firebase project. So I'll just put it in my main method. Now, the thing is that if we want to use await, this function has to be asynchronous. So let me change the return type from void to future void. And now it can be async. And another thing that's for some reason not written in the documentation but is really needed is widgets Flutter binding dot ensure initialized. This is very important, it won't work otherwise. So let me save my file and let's try to run our project. So it's going to try to load the application to our Android emulator, and it seems that everything worked. It didn't do anything useful, but the application started successfully. Let's now try to do something very basic but useful using Firebase. And what I'm going to do is to create a new FireStore database. Then I'm going to store a value in a new FireStore collection. Then I'm going to retrieve this value from my application. So let's get back to our Firebase project. Let's continue to console here. And if we scroll down a bit, we can see that we have several options. The one I'm interested in is Cloud FireStore, because I want to store a value here, so I'll be able to retrieve it. Here I'm going to create database in Cloud FireStore. You can change the location if you really want. I'm just going to leave it at the default. And to make things easier, I'm going to start in test mode. As you can see, this changes here, the allow, read, write, because if you start in production mode, it's going to be false. So it's going to be much harder to write to your database, even to read from it. You really need to know your way around the FireStore permissions. But if you only want to get started and make sure that things work, you can start in test mode. And for 1 month, so now it's June 6 until July 6, I'm going to be able to read and write quite easily. So let's start this way and let me create the database. And it was created. Let's now create a collection in this database. So start collection. And we need to provide a collection ID. I just go with collection 1, and you can choose whatever you want. Now inside collection 1, we need to create a document. So my document ID is going to be ABC123. Of course, you can auto-generate it if you want, or choose anything of your liking. Now we can provide information in this document. And since FireStore is non-SQL, it doesn't have any rigid scheme. You basically can have here any fields you want. I'm just going to start with a single field, and it's going to be an important field. This is why I'm going to call it important. And now we need to provide the value it's going to store. And let's just write here something, and this is going to be my very important string, my very important text that I'm going to be able to retrieve in my Flutter project. So this is all of the information I want in my collection. Let's save it. So we can see that we have a database. In the database, we have one collection called collection 1. Inside collection 1, we have one document, and its ID is ABC123. Inside this document, we only have one field called important, and its value is this string. Now I want to retrieve this information, I want to retrieve this text in my Flutter project. So first we need to install the FireStore Dart package. So once again, I'm going to use my good friend Google, but this time instead of Flutter core, I'm going to look for FireStore Cloud. And here it is, Cloud FireStore. This is the package we want. So once again, I'm going to copy the exact name of the package along with its version. And let me paste it to my pubspec.yaml file. So here in the dependencies section, I'm going to paste it. Once again, I'm going to save it, which will install the package to my project. And now we should be able to use it. So let's get back to our main.dart file and let's import the Cloud FireStore package. Cloud FireStore, Cloud FireStore. Here it is. And now to access our FireStore Cloud instance, we're going to do it this way. FireBase FireStore, here it is, .instance. Now we are working with the actual object, with our FireStore Cloud object. From here we can access our different collections. This is done using the collection method. And we need to specify the ID of the collection where we want to work with. So I want to work with this collection, the one that's called collection 1. So let me copy it. This is my collection. And from this collection, I want a specific document. So this is done using the doc method. And now we need to specify the document we want. And the document I want is this one, ABC123. So let's copy the ID of this document. And I'll paste it here. And eventually, to actually retrieve the content of this document, we need the get method. And the get method is going to return the content of this document. So let's store it in some variable. I'll just call it redDoc. And now, just to keep things simple, I'm going to print it. It will write it here to the debug console. So we should be able to see the content of the document we read from FireStore. Flutter recommends to not use print in production, but this is okay. This is only for testing. So let me stop my project. Now, retrieving a piece of information, retrieving data from FireStore Cloud is also an asynchronous operation. So this is why here we have to add a wait. And this way our print will only run once the information was actually successfully retrieved. Now, to see the actual data that came back from the document we read, we need the .data method. And let's also add here some additional text so it's easier to filter the output messages in the debug console. And let's try to debug our application now. And here, let me open my debug console. And of course, we can see a lot of messages here that come from Flutter itself. But to see our information, the data that we actually read, I'm going to use this as a filter. So let me paste it here. And look what we got. Data from read document, important. This is my very important text. And this is the JSON retrieved from FireStore Cloud. Because if we take a look here again, we can see that this is exactly what we have in FireStore.